The killer brutally cut open a pregnant woman's belly and pulled the baby out. A heartbreaking case occurred when the husband discovered his wife, a pregnant woman nearing her due date, had passed away in their private home. According to initial information, the woman became a victim of severe violence. The case also left many strange details, as the perpetrator left some personal items on the victim's body before leaving the scene. Why did the perpetrator choose such a brutal method? And more importantly, what will happen to the baby in the mother's womb? Join us as we uncover the untold mysteries of this case in today's video. This is a true crime case adapted in a 2D style. The incident occurred in Japan, and the victim was Mitsuko Shoya, who was only 27 years old at the time and had just married Yasuo Shoya. Both husband and wife were eagerly awaiting the birth of their first child. Mitsuko's due date had been March 13th, but 5 days had passed with no signs of the baby arriving. Because of this, during this time, her husband Yasuo had been very worried and cautious. Every day, he would call home at least twice to check on Mitsuko, hoping that both she and the baby were healthy. Mitsuko, gentle and considerate by nature, didn't want to burden her husband with unnecessary worries. She tried to keep everything under control, doing light household chores and preparing for the baby's arrival. On the day of the incident, Yasuo Shoya made his first call of the day from work to check on his wife. Mitsuko, as usual, responded calmly, saying there were still no signs of labor. Everything seemed fine, and Yasuo felt reassured knowing his wife was still waiting for the birth of their first child. At around 6:50 p.m. that evening, Yasuo Shoya, as per his routine, made his second call of the day to check on his wife before finishing work and heading home. This was a habit he maintained daily, especially since Mitsuko had passed her due date, and he was constantly concerned about her health. Typically, after just 3 rings, Mitsuko would pick up, her familiar warm and gentle voice answering right away. But this time, something unusual happened. The phone kept ringing, but Mitsuko didn't answer. The phone rang repeatedly, but there was no response from the other end. Yasuo started to feel anxious as the phone had rung more than 10 times with no answer. However, Yasuo tried to calm himself, thinking perhaps Mitsuko had gone out to meet friends or had been caught up in something unexpected. Maybe she was resting or busy with housework and didn't hear the phone. In his mind, he still hoped everything was okay and would be explained once he got home. About an hour later, Yasuo Shoya arrived home. As soon as he reached the door, he sensed something was wrong. The second floor, where they lived, should have been brightly lit as usual, but today it was eerily dark. As he approached the front door, Yasuo grew even more confused when he saw the door, which was always securely locked, slightly ajar. Despite the growing unease, Yasuo tried to stay calm, telling himself perhaps his wife had simply forgotten to lock the door. He entered the house intending to head straight to the bedroom to change, but the unsettling feeling wouldn't leave his mind. As soon as he stepped into the bedroom, Yasuo was startled by the sound of a baby crying, making him wonder, could it be that Mitsuko has already given birth? Without hesitation, he turned on the light to see his wife and their baby, but instead of the joyous sight he had expected, he was met with a scene he could hardly believe. His wife lay motionless on the floor, her body covered in blood and brutally tortured. Next to her was the baby, still attached to the mother by the umbilical cord, crying loudly in the room. Seeing this horrifying scene, Yasuo had only one thought. He needed to call the police immediately to save his wife and child. He rushed to the front door to grab the phone that was usually kept there, but to his shock, the phone was missing. Yasuo immediately ran downstairs to knock on the neighbor's door and borrow their phone to call for emergency services. In no time, police and an ambulance arrived at the scene. However, all efforts were in vain, as the medical staff confirmed that Mitsuko had passed away earlier and could not be revived. The autopsy later revealed that Mitsuko had not been sexually assaulted before her death, but both of her hands had been tied behind her back with a cord, and her neck was strangled with an electrical wire. The most horrifying detail was the 38 centimeters long and 2.8 centimeters deep wound that ran from her chest down to her lower abdomen. The incision had torn open Mitsuko's abdomen, and the baby, still in the womb, had been violently pulled out and discarded to one side. But what stunned both the police and forensic staff the most was what the perpetrator had placed inside Mitsuko's abdomen: the phone that had been at the entrance and a Mickey Mouse keychain. These two objects were unnaturally placed inside Mitsuko's body, making the crime even more gruesome and mysterious. Although Mitsuko could not be saved, fortunately, the baby forcibly removed from her womb still had a chance to survive. After the police arrived at the scene and saw the critical condition of the baby, the ambulance immediately rushed the infant to the hospital for urgent care and treatment. Due to the violent and unprofessional manner in which the baby was extracted, the child suffered severe injuries. Doctors found 3 distinct wounds on the baby's body, located on the left knee and inner left thigh. These wounds worsened the baby's condition, especially due to heavy blood loss and hypothermia caused by cold shock. When the baby was taken to the emergency room, the situation was extremely dire, and doctors feared the chance of survival was very slim. However, thanks to Yasuo Shoya and the baby's grandfather, both of whom immediately donated blood, the baby's lost blood was replenished, stabilizing the infant's condition. A true miracle happened when, just 15 days after the tragedy, the baby made a miraculous recovery. From the brink of life and death, the child overcame all odds and gradually regained health. The baby's survival was the only solace left for Yasuo Shoya and his family after the devastating tragedy they had endured. However, what left people puzzled was the savage method of the crime and the killer's motive, which remained an unsolved mystery. Throughout the investigation, the biggest question that both the police and the public kept asking was, why did the killer cruelly place the phone and keychain inside the victim's womb? This was considered the strangest and most haunting detail of the case, sparking many theories, but to this day, no satisfactory answer has been found. One thing that was definitively confirmed by the forensic autopsy was that Mitsuko had been strangled to death with an electrical cord, and the primary cause of death was asphyxiation. When Yasuo Shoya discovered the blood all over the floor, forensic experts determined that the blood was not from the initial act of killing by cutting open her abdomen, but only after she had died. The killer used a sharp blade to slice her stomach. This means she was killed before her abdomen was cut open, and the blood spilled from the incision after her death. Forensics also examined Mitsuko's birth canal and found it completely closed, confirming that the baby had been forcibly removed through an unnatural, violent cesarean section. This indicated that the killer had used a knife to extract the baby from the womb after Mitsuko had already died. The victim's time of death was estimated to be around 4 p.m., just shortly before Yasuo had called home and received no response from his wife. Although the police gathered horrifying evidence at the crime scene, aside from these details, they found no other trace of the perpetrator. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, and everything seemed meticulously cleaned, leaving no clear signs of the murderer's presence. The unusually clean crime scene only deepened the mystery and made the investigation even more challenging. The only clue the police were able to find was a clear shoe print on the floor. The shoe print was about 25 centimeters long, and based on the remaining details, police speculated that the perpetrator might have worn shoes from a well-known brand when entering the apartment. However, though the shoe print was a potentially promising lead, unfortunately, besides this, no other evidence was found that could help identify the killer. The investigation gradually stalled, and despite the police's best efforts, using every method and resource to gather clues, they were unable to make further progress. All they could do at that point was form a few theories based on small and vague details, but these were not enough to reach any concrete conclusions. The lack of specific and clear evidence made the case increasingly difficult to solve, leaving many questions and an unresolved nightmare. Since the killer had not been caught, many people began to suspect that the murderer might actually be Yasuo Shoya, the victim's husband. This suspicion arose because many believed that Yasuo's actions after discovering the crime seemed strange and not typical of how a husband would react in such a situation. After arriving home and noticing everything was amiss, the lights off, the door ajar, most people in that situation would likely have immediately called the police or at least checked the situation inside the house. But Yasuo chose to go into the bedroom to change out of his work clothes, an action that many found puzzling and suspicious. Additionally, some people commented that his demeanor seemed too calm for someone who had just discovered such a bloody tragedy involving his wife. This combination of factors led to a wave of suspicion that he might have been involved in the crime. However, after thorough investigation, the police confirmed that Yasuo Shoya had a clear alibi. At the time of the murder, he was at work and not present at the scene. Yasuo's coworkers testified on his behalf, and there was no evidence linking him to the crime. Yasuo's actions could simply have been the reactions of someone in shock and panic, unable to fully control themselves in the moment of extreme grief. Once the possibility of Yasuo Shoya being the killer was ruled out, the police shifted their investigation toward a robbery-turned-murder case. They speculated that it could have been a botched robbery, which led the perpetrator to kill Mitsuko. However, this line of investigation also failed to yield the expected results. Despite police searching everywhere for clues, there were no clear signs of a robbery. Mitsuko's wallet was almost intact, with only a few thousand yen missing, an insignificant amount. Moreover, valuable items in the house, such as jewelry, electronics, and other prized possessions, were neither stolen nor damaged. This led the police to gradually realize that the case did not entirely fit the profile of a robbery murder, causing the investigation to hit a dead end. In the years that followed, the police did not stop searching for the killer. They deployed more than 40,000 officers to scour the area, collect evidence, interrogate witnesses, and examine every detail that might relate to the case. However, despite their tireless efforts, everything remained shrouded in darkness, with no clear leads emerging to point them toward the real perpetrator. The investigation yielded only one lead, a mysterious detail involving a neighbor who lived below the Shoya family. According to the neighbor's account, they might have accidentally encountered the killer on the day of the murder. They recalled that at that time, there was a suspicious-looking stranger near the apartment, which caught their attention. However, when asked to provide a detailed description of this person, the neighbor was unable to remember any distinguishing features of the stranger. What remained was only a vague impression of the person's shape, a fleeting image that wasn't specific enough to identify them. Despite the scant and ambiguous nature of this information, the police took it seriously and thoroughly considered it, hoping it could be a crucial lead in identifying the killer. Unfortunately, this clue did not yield any concrete results, and the police could not use it to arrest any suspects. Despite trying to extract more information from the neighbor and others in the vicinity, the results remained mere speculation, insufficient to push the investigation further. And after decades of relentless investigation, with countless efforts from the police, the chilling, pregnant woman's stomach-slashing murder case in Nagoya finally reached a heartbreaking and disappointing conclusion. Despite the best efforts of the police and investigators, utilizing all available forensic technology and modern investigative methods to hunt down the culprit, there was no further progress. According to Japanese law, the statute of limitations for the crime had officially expired. This meant that even if the criminal's identity were discovered after this point, they could not be brought to justice for the heinous crimes they had committed. The decision to close the case was made amidst public disappointment and the sorrow of those who had lost their loved ones. The case was officially classified as an unsolved crime, a cold but factual conclusion, meaning that the perpetrator remained free, living with impunity. The case was not only a family tragedy, but also a collective trauma for Japanese society. It left a deep sense of loss in people's trust in justice, a lasting insecurity, knowing that the killer could still be out in the world, unpunished. The truth about the painful death of the unfortunate pregnant woman and her unborn child would forever be buried in the darkest pages of Japan's criminal history. In the years that followed, whenever the case was mentioned, people not only remembered the inhumane brutality of the killer, but also the failure of a legal system that could not bring justice to the innocent victims. As for the victim's family, the lives of Yasuo Shoya and his young son would never return to what they had been before. The loss of his beloved wife, his lifelong partner, was a massive shock for Yasuo. But what broke him even more was not just her death, but witnessing the horrifying tragedy unfold right in the home where they had once lived happily. Although Yasuo's young son was too small to understand the full truth at the time, the grim atmosphere and the grief of losing a loved one had engulfed their lives. The presence of death and such overwhelming tragedy made the air in their home perpetually heavy, with an eerie and oppressive silence. Yasuo did his best to care for and protect his son, but he himself was drowning in a sorrow from which he could not escape, making it hard for him to be the strong pillar his son needed. Sleepless nights, moments of solitude when reminiscing about their happy past, these all became painful memories that he could never erase. 1 year after the heartbreaking incident, Yasuo made an important decision that he believed was necessary for both his and his son's future. He decided to leave Japan, where the media continuously mentioned the case so callously. Yasuo felt he could no longer live in such an environment, where people always looked at him with pity and curiosity. Every time newspapers or TV programs brought up the case, it tore open the wounds in his heart, and the painful memories flooded back. He didn't want his son to grow up in that haunted space, burdened by a past pain he didn't deserve to carry. Seeking peace and a chance to build a better life for his son, Yasuo chose Hawaii as their new home. Hawaii, with its peaceful scenery, far removed from the noise and bustle of Japan, was where he hoped to make a fresh start. It wasn't just about escaping the painful memories, but about creating an opportunity for him and his son to heal and rediscover joy in life. In Hawaii, Yasuo tried to create a positive environment for his son. He hoped that in this place, both father and son could forget some of their grief and begin a new life, away from the echoes of the past and the pitiful or curious stares of others. But no matter how hard he tried, Yasuo knew that the wounds in his heart would never fully heal. The loss and tragedy would forever be a part of him, and perhaps he would only learn to live with it, rather than ever truly forgetting. Every time he saw his son grow up, Yasuo couldn't help but think of his late wife. He constantly wondered what their family would have been like now, happy and complete if the tragedy had never happened. Nevertheless, with the love he had for his son, Yasuo was determined to dedicate the rest of his life to raising him to be strong and resilient. To this day, the Nagoya pregnant woman's stomach-slashing murder remains one of the most infamous unsolved cases in Japanese history, leaving trauma and pain for both the victim's family and society. Yasuo and his son were forced to continue living, but their lives were forever changed by what had happened on that fateful day. Next, please follow the case. Female flight attendant murdered, body hidden in closet for 4 days. When the flight attendant's sister opened the wardrobe to check, firefighters discovered the victim's decomposing body in a kneeling position. The strange thing is that the family members living with the girl did not smell any foul odor for the past 4 days. The murder case of the flight attendant in the wardrobe shocked Hong Kong for a long time with its intricate details. The mysterious death of the beautiful flight attendant sparked many rumors. From there, her true life was exposed, helping the police track down the perpetrator. Although they identified the suspect's identity, it took 3 years for the police to arrest him. Let's explore the truth behind Hong Kong's most horrific murder case, with the mysterious details still behind. This is a true story adaptation. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications whenever there is a new video. The setting of this story takes place in Hong Kong, China. On December 4th, 2013, in a private apartment in Suanwan Garden, Hong Kong, Chen Manyi, a young and beautiful woman, was meticulously organizing her luggage in preparation for an upcoming business trip. In the quiet atmosphere of the room, the doorbell suddenly rang loudly, shattering the peace of the space. At first, she thought it was a family member returning home, so without any caution, she hurriedly went to the door, with a slight annoyance in her heart. "Why didn't you bring the key this time?" Chen Manyi opened the door while frowning slightly, not immediately noticing anything unusual. However, as soon as the door opened, the image of the person standing before her stunned Chen Manyi. Her eyes immediately changed, pupils dilated, and her face showed fear. The person standing at the door was not the family member she expected, but an uninvited guest. Although she did not want to, she had to reluctantly invite the stranger into her home. The atmosphere in the room became tense and suffocating. The two faced each other, not exchanging many words, but the tension between them seemed to slice through the air. After only a short time, the guest left the apartment, carrying coldness and mystery with him. Chen Manyi also disappeared mysteriously thereafter. Her family had no doubts, still believing that she had gone to work at the airline as planned, so no one was worried. 4 days later, on December 8th, Chen Manyi's younger sister, Chen Manzhen, went to the apartment to check the room and discovered the most horrifying thing in her life. While opening the wardrobe, she was shocked to find Chen Manyi's corpse lying inside, already beginning to decompose. Why was Chen Manyi murdered? Who was the guest whose face changed the last time he met the beautiful flight attendant? Chen Manyi was born into a humble family in Hong Kong, where her family had only a small, cramped apartment and not much living condition. She was the eldest daughter among 3 sisters, bearing the responsibility of caring for and protecting her younger siblings since they were very young. Chen Manyi's parents were ordinary workers, doing manual labor jobs with low wages, just enough to cover their daily lives. After many years of diligently saving every small wage, they finally had enough money to buy a small house in Suanwan Garden, a densely populated residential area. This was an important milestone for their family, as it was the first time they had a stable place to live and no longer had to worry about renting or moving. The house, though not very spacious, was the result of many years of hard work, a pride that the parents always wanted to bestow upon their children. As the eldest daughter in the family, Chen Manyi had been aware of her responsibilities since childhood. She always strives to fulfill her role as the eldest sister, not only helping her parents with household chores, but also taking care of her 2 younger sisters when their parents have to work all day. Despite the many difficulties in life, Chen Manyi never complains. On the contrary, she is always diligent, patient, and eager to learn. Neighbors often praise Chen Manyi as a well-behaved, polite girl who always knows how to conduct herself properly. Determined not to disappoint her parents, since she was still in school, Chen Manyi set a goal for herself to enter a prestigious university. Years of diligent study, along with relentless effort, helped her achieve remarkable academic accomplishments. Possessing a tall, beautiful appearance with a graceful face and a charming smile, she always attracts others' attention. Many people even advised her to pursue a career as a flight attendant, a job considered prestigious and high-paying in Hong Kong. They believed that with her outstanding looks and excellent communication skills, Chen Manyi would have a bright future in this industry. In response to everyone's praise, Chen Manyi did not become arrogant. Instead, she worked even harder. Hong Kong is a place where every inch of land is precious, where everyone must race to survive. Chen Mani understands this better than anyone. She tells herself to work even harder, striving each day to build a bright future for herself and her family. After graduating high school with excellent grades, she passed the difficult entrance exams and was officially admitted to the University of Hong Kong. This was the first step for her to nurture her grand dream of becoming a flight attendant, a job not only highly regarded, but also greatly admired in Hong Kong. At that time, being a flight attendant was a dream for many, not only because of the attractive salaries, but also due to the prestige and the opportunity to travel around the world. Compared to other workers who have to spend many years to get a raise, flight attendants seem to have a stable income. With her pleasing appearance and confident demeanor, Chen Mani was officially hired by Cathay Dragon, one of Hong Kong's leading airlines. In her work, Chen Mani always appeared professional and friendly to everyone. She was loved by her colleagues for her approachable personality and high responsibility. Chen Mani always adhered to all regulations, performed her duties well on flights, and almost never received complaints from passengers. Upon receiving her first salary, the joy within Chen Mani overflowed. She did not hesitate to organize a lavish party to treat her family. More than half of her salary was sent to her parents to help them make ends meet, showing her filial piety. Chen Mani is a girl who deeply loves her family. She lives harmoniously and maintains very good relationships with everyone in the household. No one could have imagined that a vibrant girl, at the peak of her youth, could become a victim of a mysterious murder. The first person to discover the body on December 8th was her younger sister, Chen Manjin. Overwhelmed with fear, Chen Manjin immediately called the police. After the police arrived at the scene, they immediately conducted a thorough autopsy of Chen Mani. On the victim's body, there were no obvious wounds, nor any signs of a violent altercation or fierce resistance. However, the only distinct trace easily noticeable was a deep mark on the neck, indicating that the victim had been strangled. The time of death of Chen Mani was determined by forensic experts to be December 4th, meaning she had died approximately 4 days before her body was discovered. The victim's family also provided important information, stating that on that day, no one was at home except Chen Mani. Her parents and 2 younger sisters had all gone out to work. Chen Mani had a flight on that day and was preparing her belongings at home when her sister Chen Manjin left the house. This detail was further corroborated when Chen Mani was found in the flight attendant uniform she had prepared for the flight. When investigating the scene, the police noted that there were no signs of struggle between the victim and the perpetrator. The doors and windows of the house showed no signs of being damaged or forced in from the outside. This further clarified that the victim might have voluntarily opened the door for the murderer to enter the house. Additionally, only Chen Mani's mobile phone and bank card were missing. No other valuable items were taken. This ruled out the possibility of a regular theft, and the police began to suspect that the culprit might be someone Chen Mani knew. According to the information gathered, on the day of the incident, Chen Mani likely voluntarily opened the door for the perpetrator. The two may have had an argument or some disagreement, leading the perpetrator to act out in anger. After committing the crime, the perpetrator hid the victim in the wardrobe in the private bedroom. Due to the cold weather in Hong Kong in December, the wardrobe still had ice packs, so Chen Mani's family did not detect any foul odor. The building where Chen Mani's family lived was equipped with surveillance cameras. The police quickly contacted the condominium management to retrieve the footage. They meticulously analyzed the footage of people entering and leaving the building at the time of Chen Mani's murder. To identify and recognize individuals who might know the victim, the police called Chen Manzhen, to review and analyze the recorded footage. The footage captured by the surveillance camera was chaotic and difficult to follow, leading the police and Chen Manjin to spend hours watching without discovering any significant clues. The atmosphere in the surveillance room grew tense, with exhaustion evident on everyone's faces. Just when everyone seemed on the verge of giving up, Chen Manjin's eyes suddenly lit up. She jumped up and said urgently, "Wait, can you rewind that part? I think I just saw someone familiar." The police immediately refocused, rewinding the clip as requested by Chen Manjin. When the video replayed, Chen Manjin confidently pointed at the screen, her voice growing louder, filled with unwavering certainty. "It's him. It's definitely him. He's the killer." The person Chen Manjin referred to was Mo Nxian, the ex-boyfriend of her older sister, Chen Manyi. They had broken up a long time ago, but Mo Junxian's presence at the apartment raised many questions. Chen Manjin's statement opened up a new direction for the investigation, helping the police gradually piece together the events between Mo Junxian and Chen Manyi. Despite being sisters, their lives were completely different. Chen Manyi, with her gentle and intelligent demeanor, was admitted to the Chinese University of Hong Kong and later became a flight attendant. In contrast, Chen Manjin did not pursue higher education and worked at a bar. The younger sister always felt her life wasn't as prestigious as her older sisters, but the bond between them remained strong. As a result, Chen Manyi often went to the bar to pick up her younger sister after her late shifts. It was at this bar that Chen Manyi met Mo Junxian and began dating him. He came from an upper-class family whose parents were wealthy thanks to investments in the transportation industry. However, the wealth and indulgence he received from his family did not lead to Mo Junxian's success in life. Instead, he became a hedonist, disinterested in education, and lacked clear goals in life. Mo Junxian, due to his poor academic performance, was unable to enter university. Relying on his parents' money, he only took low-paying jobs, living a leisurely life and spending money carelessly. Mo Junxian's greatest pleasure was hanging out at bars with his friends. One of the bars Chen Manjin worked at was a place he frequently visited. It was there that he met Chen Manyi, the woman who changed his life and brought their relationship to a tragic end. Chen Manyi possessed an exquisite beauty, with a delicate face and perfect figure, which quickly caught Mo Junxian's attention. Enchanted by her alluring appearance, Mo Junxian began an intense pursuit, determined to win Chen Manyi's heart. At first, under the persistent advances of Mo Junxian, Chen Manyi gradually softened. Mo Junxian's family was not only wealthy but also incredibly generous, which made it hard for many young women to resist someone like him. Chen Manyi was no exception, and she soon fell for Mo Junxian, charmed by his gallant and pampering ways. In the early months of their relationship, Chen Manyi and Mo Junxian experienced a sweet and dreamy time together. Those around couldn't help but envy Chen Manyi, as she seemed to have found a charming prince, a man who was both wealthy and doted on her. Chen Manyi herself believed she had met the true love of her life. In her joy, she did not hesitate to introduce Mo Junxian to her family, and the two began discussing the future, even mentioning marriage. However, that sweetness did not last long. Gradually, cracks in the relationship began to surface as Mo Junxian's true nature was revealed. Although he appeared to be a caring and faithful man in front of Chen Manyi, in reality, he was nothing more than a philanderer. Not only did he secretly have affairs with other women, but he also frequently sought out relationships online, even suspecting Chen Manyi of cheating on him. Mo Junxian's unfounded suspicions left Chen Manyi feeling exhausted and stressed. She could no longer tolerate a boyfriend who was both unfaithful and distrustful. After enduring for some time, they finally decided to break up. However, Mo Junshin skillfully convinced her with sweet words to get back together. Their relationship resumed, but didn't last long. As a horrific event occurred, Mo Junshan began to exhibit violent behavior. Mo Junshan's financial issues were also a major factor that caused their relationship to deteriorate. Due to his lazy nature and unwillingness to strive, Mo Junshan's parents decided to tighten financial control in order to force him to become more responsible. Mo Junshan, who was accustomed to a luxurious life, suddenly found himself in a situation where he no longer had money to spend. Instead of working hard to improve his life, his first thought was to borrow money from his girlfriend, Chen Manyi. Although Chen Manyi had a stable job with a decent income, most of the money she earned had to be used to support her family. Therefore, when Mo Junshan asked to borrow money, she could only help him a few times. However, as the borrowing became more frequent, Chen Manyi started to doubt Mo Junshan's true intentions with the money. When she could no longer meet Mo Junshan's financial demands, she had to face his wrath. During a heated argument, Mo Junshan lost control and attempted to strangle Chen Manyi with the intent to kill her. Terrified, Chen Manyi struggled free from Mo Junshan's violent grip and escaped. From that moment on, Chen Manyi woke up to the reality. She saw through Mo Junshan's true nature and realized that this relationship could no longer continue. With determination, she cut off all contact and ended her relationship with Mo Junshan, never looking back. No one could have predicted that just 3 months later, Chen Manyi would be murdered by Mo Junshan himself. Although the identity of Mo Junshan's killer has yet to be determined by the police, to Chen Manjin, she was certain he was the culprit. Tears streaming down her face, Chen Manjin sobbed. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't worked at that bar, my sister would have never met Mo Junshan. I ruined her life." This led the police to believe that Mo Junshan had fled after committing the crime. Although Hong Kong police conducted extensive searches, Mo Junshan seemed to have vanished into thin air. In an effort to swiftly catch the murderer, the Hong Kong police offered a reward of 300,000 Hong Kong dollars for any information leading to his capture. However, despite the large reward, all leads came to a dead end. Mo Junshan remained elusive. As time passed, the case gradually faded from memory, until 3 years later, in October 2016, an unexpected call from an elderly man in Shenzhen brought the case to light. In a trembling voice, the old man revealed that his son-in-law was none other than Mo Junshan, the man who had been on the run for 3 years after committing murder. He provided full information on Mo Junshan's whereabouts. On October 29th, Shenzhen police surrounded a hair salon where Mo Junshan's wife was working. When a familiar figure appeared, the police immediately ordered action. Mo Junshan, completely caught off guard, was thrown to the ground. When he turned and saw the police uniforms, his face instantly showed signs of despair and defeat. On February 1st, 2017, Mo Junshan was extradited to Hong Kong. There, after hours of intense interrogation, he finally confessed to all of his crimes. On December 4th, 2013, Mo Junshan decided to try to rekindle his relationship with Chen Manyi. In reality, at that time, Chen Manyi had already moved on with a new boyfriend and had healed from the emotional scars of her broken relationship with Mo Junshan. She no longer had any feelings for him. However, Mo Junshan was unwilling to give up. His obsession and selfish pride drove him to visit Chen Manyi's family, hoping for one more chance. As Mo Junshan entered the building where Chen Manyi's family lived, he felt a mix of both nervousness and determination rising within him. He believed that somehow he could convince Chen Manyi to return to him once more. When Chen Manyi opened the door, the surprise and discomfort were evident on her face. Before she could say anything, Mo Junxian rushed into the house and slammed the door shut. Her eyes became vigilant, but she still maintained a calm demeanor, hoping to keep her distance from him. When Mo Junxian pleaded for reconciliation, Chen Manyi refused without hesitation. Her decisive rejection was like a knife stabbing into Mo Junxian's pride, making him feel humiliated and unbearable. He grew furious, his anger erupting uncontrollably. The argument between the two intensified fiercely. In a blind rage, Mo Junxian found the silk scarf on Chen Manyi's flight attendant uniform and used it to cruelly end her life. As Chen Manyi lay motionless on the floor, Mo Junxian stood there, looking at her lifeless body, feeling a terrifying sense of pleasure. From a young age, he had always lived in a well-provided environment, pampered and able to get anything he wanted. This pampering had shaped his selfish and ruthless personality. He couldn't accept that something he desired would fall into someone else's hands. After killing Chen Manyi, Mo Junxian felt no remorse. He justified his actions by reasoning that he couldn't allow anyone to have what he couldn't possess. Immediately after committing the crime, he fled to Shenzhen, filled with anxiety and fear. He decided to return to Hong Kong, but ultimately lacked the courage to face the truth, so he continued to hide. For 3 years on the run, Mo Junxian lived under a false name in Shenzhen and built a new life with another woman. They even had a child together. But fate cannot be avoided forever. When he was captured and brought back to Hong Kong, Mo Junxian had to face the court and the law. Mo Junxian was charged with premeditated murder and was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment, a sentence that many agreed was just. Although the perpetrator was punished, the beautiful and blossoming